For such a beautiful location, and I mean it, this city and the landscapes we see over the course of the past few episodes, breathtaking, beautiful. Any other show, even if it may be a little empty and a little isolated, you could still argue it's a hopeful adventure. And to see the shit that we've seen, and I mean, goddamn, this author loves butt stuff. Like, let's be honest here, the elevator in episode 1 with the bathroom break, the sewing scene in episode 2, to the upset stomach and even prolapsed anus of their creature. There's some stuff being told here that I can't really recall saying or seeing in different shows, especially within 3 episodes of each other, but leave it to Made in Abyss to absolutely disturb its viewers. I mean, this is one of the most beautiful looking shows while being one of the most disturbing all at the same time. Honestly, a lot of the landscapes and backgrounds remind me of Somali in the Forest Spirit, which is a pretty wholesome show, even though it does get depressing itself in certain ways. It's a beautiful show with hand-painted backgrounds, and it just sucks you right in. That's kind of how Made in Abyss does it, but it does it in a different way. It sucks you in to make you feel like you're the characters being lured to the depths. And we know, once, like, even if you survive going down, going back up, you're cursed, you're screwed. It's a fate worse than death. And I think for a show, especially a season that has a entirely new cast of characters that were after that hope, after that place that they could be saved. We now know at the very least the so-called princess, who is the character who we got introduced to in episode 1 when this group was going to explore. They got their little travel guide. Now, it's still up in the air if the entire group got turned into hollows or if it was just some of them. Based on the reaction when they initially went down there, we saw there's already some weird-looking creatures. One would suspect, and I talked about it in last week's video, I saw some people agree in the comments section, that the group we're following very well could be a majority of the characters we got introduced to who were searching for the Golden City. Though it could be a mix and match, it might maybe only the princess survived, maybe the creature that stole the white whistle was actually that girl who basically wanted to keep the travel guide with her. There's a lot of potential of what they want to do with it. All that we know for sure is that this group of hollows is absolutely disturbing. It almost reminds me of a child's innocence, where you don't want a child who's very strong to touch the little bunny because they don't know their own strength and they might snap its neck, they might crush its organs. There's a lot of things that could happen. And the idea of what we saw with their pet in this episode, even knowing it's okay because it's like squishy, its bones are squishy, so it was able to survive. When we saw that, I was not expecting a flip. I was totally expecting that it was just dead and they were going to have to accept that. But the value of currency to these creatures is so disturbing. They go from talking like, hey, you can sell yourself. Children are the most precious and valuable. Sell an organ, sell an eye, sell an arm. Anything is worth money. But the fact that this village has like this almost magical effect that if you rob someone or do something bad to one's value, you then get that equivalent ripped away from you. So in the case of when they asked, what was this worth to you? It was priceless. It was a loved one, right? And the idea of seeing what happened to this creature, which in the moment, I was very upset. I was very mad at what this thing was doing. It was squishing, it was holding, it was just, stop, you idiot. But it's ignorant, right? It is basically a big old teddy bear that doesn't know its own strength, and it has a slimmer of human intelligence that is clearly far, far gone. So it wasn't like it was an evil being, it was just, it didn't know its own morals. It didn't know what was right from wrong. And when it started getting robbed, I was like, okay, I find it disturbing because it really does feel like a violating scene because the way they're ripping it apart to steal its possessions, I did not like that in the slightest. But when it started ripping itself and then giving the meat to all the bystanders, holy shit, that is one of the most creepy-ass, disturbing scenes that this show has given us to date, I honestly think. And this is obviously just the start. This village is going to show us so much more that is going to make us say, holy shit, I want to throw up from what I'm seeing. But it's the way they go about not lingering on the depression for long enough that you get numb to it. More so, with the characters we're following, given what some of them have been through, basically becoming positive after such a negative is the only way you don't go clinically insane and basically give up on life. And based on what they've been through up to this point, and the fact that it doesn't even feel like we've reached anywhere close to the worst that they'll experience, putting on a smile and eating some disgusting-ass stew is probably the only thing they can do. And even though I do think you can definitely raise an eyebrow at maybe the amount of, like, shit takes that they decide to bring up, like the idea of bowel movements or, you know, creatures being sewn up from the backside, it is a legit thing that people would deal with, especially with all the different types of food that they're eating. And as funny or questionably disturbing as it is to witness, you don't really see that level of realism all too much. So I will give the author props, even if sometimes I do say, you know, sometimes I wonder if we need to see as much as we do in this department, but hey, leave it to Made in Abyss. It doesn't sugarcoat the gross to the disturbing to the what the hell am I seeing, because the Abyss doesn't hold your hand, so why should the anime, I guess, right? That's probably a counter argument to everything. But this was a wild episode, man. It really does feel like Made in Abyss, usually the way I'd put it is that it's a steady climb, right? You know, episode 1, getting you back in, episode 2, holy shit, that's really impressive, episode 3, still that climb. But it almost feels like between the first 3 episodes of this season of Made in Abyss, it's skyrocketed each week, where coming back in, especially after that rewatch of the movie that I did prior to the season releasing, I was like, damn, it already feels like this Golden City will be better than even the previous movie, which is saying a hell of a lot, given I think the movie is one of anime's best. But then episode 2 and 3, it feels like it's jumping, and I can really understand why I've seen so many people say this is their favorite arc, and it is the most holy shit, what am I witnessing? And it's crazy to see how they go about presenting so many things, from visually to, like, the way they just the bodies, like, just separate and stuff. It's so creepy, but it's also just the characters' faces, and you really do feel like they go from these adventurers who've been through such hardships that they can deal with anything, to just children looking at a loved one being squished to death, and the idea of pushing the eye back in and everything, like, that's just, even though it's technically fine, the fact that it happened to begin with is horrifying. And with that said, like, I never wanted to see that creature killed or anything, or ripped apart for a value. Like, just the way it can go about making you angry, but then immediately angry at something else that you don't wish any harm to these creatures, because it's not like they're these evil beings that chose to be that way. Whatever they do, it's because of the Abyss, right? The Abyss turns things into even worse things. And that's why it's just so, it's mesmerizing, but damn if it isn't disgustingly horrifying. And I mean, the way they present the city, man, it's just, it sucks you right in. And the voice actors, to the music, to everything else, it just works in such harmony that it's no surprise why so many people are saying, like, you know, well before this anime even started up for season 2, that it was going to be their anime of the year, because they just knew how great this show was going to get, and it's hard not to agree with that to some degree anyway. I mean, Made in Abyss definitely is setting it up that we're going to see what happened to them before either transforming, getting killed. Some of them transform, some of them get killed. Maybe they all did but one. Either way, we're gonna see what happened to lead up to that moment, but at this point it's pretty clear whatever they went in, they're no longer there. They're definitely changed creatures, and even though our central crew hasn't changed quite as much, they would never be able to go back to exactly who they were before, given what they've experienced, both emotional and physical trauma. And I mean, we already know there's no way they're getting back to the surface. The curse alone prevents them, but it's just a matter of, could they even survive to the deepest part? And it's hard to say. I mean, yeah, they're getting hints at the mom's page from her journal or whatever, but I don't think you want to meet the mom if she's at the very, very bottom. But thoughts down below, what did you think? Definitely an incredible episode, if not disturbing to say the least. But thoughts down below, leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. Till next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.